Boy, here in chapter 8, it's a bit of a contrast from chapter 7 that talked about all the great stuff that happens for those who follow God. It's amazing, it's wonderful, it's peaceful, it's happy. Now we're getting into the seventh seal. So this starts getting into what happens to the wicked. Basically, it's not going to be the same for them. It's going to be worse. Remember that contrast we talked about? Jesus is the lion and the lamb. Well, we saw the lamb in the last chapter. This chapter, we're going to start seeing more of the lion come out. Now remember that 7, of course, means completion. This is the seventh seal. So the completion of God's work, which is a cool idea to think about. But there's some significant things for us to learn in this seal. So let's go in verse 1. When he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for the space of half an hour. This is one of those intermediary periods that most people who try to predict things try to incorporate in, because this is one that there's a timing to it, a half an hour. What does a half an hour mean in Revelations? We really don't know. It's probably more than just a half an hour. A lot of times people try to look at this and say, oh, well, if 1,000 years of man is a day to God, then a half an hour to God would be X number of years to man. And they try to kind of work that backwards. But again, I don't think it works perfectly. I don't think it completely calculates out. So this is what the New Testament Study Manual has to say about this idea. John beheld a short period of silence when the seventh seal was opened, a time when the angels of heaven are awaiting the command to execute the Lord's justice. Zephaniah described a similar period of silence that preceded the ancient destruction of Judah. That's chapter 1 of Zephaniah. The Lord's judgment and intervention are described as times when the Lord does not keep silent. Following this period of silence, John saw fire and desolation poured out during the seventh seal and preceding the second coming of Christ. Because the number 7 often symbolizes completion, the destructions of the seventh seal may be seen as preparing for the completion of God's work on earth. These destructions are going to be described in this chapter and the next few chapters. According to Greg Coaster in his book on Revelations, he said this. He said, the vision of the seventh seal consists of heavenly worship, which takes place before God's throne in a space called a temple. The silence fits Jewish worship traditions in which offerings in the temple were to be made in silence, but it also fits Greco-Roman practice, since silence showed reference when a leader offered prayers. The backdrop of silence for prayer would have been as widely familiar as were the use of palm branches to celebrate victory or white robes to show purity. Greco-Roman practice is altered, however, in that the prayers in heaven will be offered to the God of Israel rather than to the gods of the empire. The previous scene envisioned countless multitudes celebrating victory by offering praises and then falling silent, so the force of this imagery in John's context can be seen by comparing it with an imperial triumph. When Vespasian and Titus prepared to celebrate their victory in Judea, a countless multitude stood everywhere in the city of Rome. When the conquerors took their seats before the people, the troops raised their voices in acclamation until the emperor gave the signal for silence, so that amidst profound and universal stillness he might offer prayers. In Revelation, a different kind of crowd celebrates a different kind of victory. The Lamb's triumph came through sacrifice, and the salvation he offers culminates in resurrection. Now, as praises fall silent, the prayers include not only those of the victors, but those of the victims, who have suffered violence from others. In the new vision cycle, God disclosed his response. Before prayer is offered, John sees 7 angels standing before God. They are given trumpets to blow, which suggests that they receive the trumpets from God or someone in God's inner circle. Earlier, the voice of the exalted Jesus sounded like a trumpet that summoned John to write down what he saw and to come up to the heavenly throne hall, but the sound of the angels' trumpets will play a more complex role. Trumpets gave signals during battles, and the first 6 trumpets fit this pattern by bringing down the destruction on the earth and summoning up demonic armies from the underworld. But trumpets were also used in worship, and when the last trumpet sounds, it will call the house of heaven to celebrate the reign of God and his Messiah. So some really cool symbolism we're going to get in this that kind of becomes a little recursive on what we've seen with these seals a little bit as well. So again, think about this in the context of John's time period, okay? They're going to see, oh, look, all these seals match up. We're kind of in the fifth seal. The sixth seal is coming. The seventh seal is coming. If John wrote this again in the 90s, then Jerusalem has been destroyed. The temple has been destroyed. It's all obliterated. In fact, they're getting ready. If that was destroyed around probably 600-ish, or not 600, sorry, that was Babylon. This is talking Rome. The temple has not been rebuilt. This is the end of the Second Temple period in 70 AD. So if Revelation was written in the 90s AD, this is 20 years later, talking about God will worship with his people in a temple. There will be a temple rebuilt. There will be this opportunity to come back. So they could be seeing again this idea of Rome seeing victory, but God is going to see the ultimate victory. So they could easily tell this in their day and age. So this is the victory of God, the silence in heaven. Now this is a silence in heaven. This does not mean this is silence on earth or a silence between heaven and earth. Okay, that sometimes gets claimed in these people that try to say, here's how Revelations works out. Oh, there's this silence. We won't hear from God for a certain period of time or whatever. It's silence in heaven. It doesn't mean silence between heaven and earth. It doesn't mean silence on earth. It's something that happens in heaven just before announcements and prayers and things happen. Now, half an hour, again, we don't know what that means other than it probably is a concept of a short period of time. There is a break, okay? You remember in the last chapter, the four angels that were sent down to the four corners of the world to hold back the destructive forces, they're still in waiting. The silence is, we're waiting for God to make his command. We've done the praising's done, the groups are here, the righteous are in the throne room of heaven. Now it's time for the destructions. It's time for the results to happen. So verse 2, and I saw the seven angels which stood before God. Remember, these are the same, probably seven angels we've seen in the past. And to them were given seven trumpets. So this is really interesting. The seventh seal had seven trumpets, of which the last had seven bowls, 3 sets of 7, the perfection of completeness of the works of God. So that's a kind of cool symbolism. The scroll is the whole works of God that Christ has been opening one at a time. According to John now, all 7 seals are opened so we can reveal the work of God, and it is accomplished, it's all done. And now we get 7 trumpets and 7 bowls. So again, this revelation gets a little recursive, kind of repeating itself with the trumpets and bowls, that we're going to see this. So trumpets are announcing things, usually announcing warfare or worship. So they can be used in both contexts. And now verse 3, and another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer. So those are those little balls you put the incense in and burn it to kind of the smell, the odors of the incense come out of it. And there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. So we have silence. During this silence, the 7 angels are given trumpets. They're not blowing them yet. They're preparing for an announcement. The incense comes in, which incense represents prayers to God. Basically, he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar, which is before the throne. That's verse 3. So we can see this idea of lots of prayers, lots of things going on. Having one's hands filled with incense was a sign to signify legitimate priestly service, according to Greg Coaster as well. So in the temple, incense represents these prayers. So lots of things are happening, prayers to God, pleading to God, asking for help, blessings from God, thanks to God, all kinds of cool things could be wrapped into that. Now verse 4, and the smoke of the incense which came with the prayers of the saints ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. So this is a time for God to listen to the voice of the martyrs. The prayers of the saints. Part of them is probably get us out of here. This world's gone crazy. Help us, bless us, save us, as well as praise God in those things as well. Now, verse 5, and the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. So we could see, this is really interesting. The censer is filled with fire from the altar where the sacrifices are given. This fire is about cleansing the sacrifice on the altar. That's what that fire is. But it's burning up the sins of the people that the sacrifice represents. There's a lot of temple language going on in here. Now, what's fascinating is this isn't burning the sacrifice in behalf of the people's sins. This was sent to the earth where things were happening to the people who have not repented. They're paying for their own sins. They're getting hit with problems and challenges because of their wickedness. So this can mean natural disasters that cleanse the earth of sin. It could be what happens here. Part of the challenges that's going on. So now we have God's wrath. The censer coming down, it's time. That could be when the 4 angels say, all right, we're going to do our job and jump in here and do things. So voices, thunderings, lightnings, earthquake, lots of stuff going on. Verse 6, and the 7 angels which had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. So now they're going to get involved as well. Now, many scholars think this verse 6, is the end of the seals vision. So there's kind of a way to think about how we organize these things. So the seals vision, in a way, is done at this point. Now we're starting the trumpets vision, and then we're going to see the bowls vision. They all kind of represent something similar, but from a little bit different perspective. So we've got 3 representations of the judgments of God, the things that are going on, so we get perspective of this, a good, well-rounded understanding of it. If you think of this as, well, this is during, the trumpets vision happens during the 7th seal, then this becomes recursive, kind of on itself, and then the bowls become recursive on the trumpets, which is recursive on the seals. So we could look at it that way as well, and see these as kind of reinforcing the concepts that God wants us to learn through these. If you think about these in a linear fashion, like plagues and things, some people want to look at this and go, well, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, like see in a linear fashion. The challenge with this, so I'm trying to get my head clear on this with my notes, is the problems are going to repeat themselves. Some think the series of seals, trumpets, and bowls are repeats at the same time from different perspectives. So this is, again, if you're thinking, oh wait, no, they're all describing the same thing, that's one perspective. Or you think this is all linear. We're going to do the seals, then we're going to do the trumpets, then the bowls. It's just keep destruction going, basically. I think it's more likely to look at this as recursive, like the seals explain it one way, the trumpets are going to explain it another way, then the bowls are going to explain it, same thing, in another way. To get all 3, give us that perspective of what is it God wants us to understand. So now the prayers are done. It's time for the announcements. Verse 7. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood. And they were cast upon the earth, and the 3rd part of trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. That's the first trumpet. So hailstorms mixed with fire displayed God's power and wrath against the Egyptians before the Exodus, and later against Gog and other adversaries. In the Greco-Roman world, lightning and hail awakened aught toward the gods. So it's like God's mad. God's pissed at us. This is the sign God's pissed at us, basically. Dreams of fire from heaven pretended danger, while hell indicated confusion and despair. Blood raining was often considered to be a portent of war in Greco-Roman sources. That's Greg Coaster's book, Revelations, talks about that. So now what's interesting is notice the specificity of the destruction we see here in verse 7. It shows a measured response, okay? There is hail and fire mingled with blood. They were cast upon the earth, and only a third of the trees were burnt up, and all grass was burnt up. So focused, okay, this is focused problems instead of widespread, okay? Not everyone will experience the problem. If you're in that 2/3 that doesn't get this, you're not going to experience it. If you're in that third of the trees area, then you'll experience it. So what's interesting is it's not, the God's justice isn't just blanket, everybody gets it. It's focused, it's refined, it has a specific purpose, and it does its thing, and that's it. Okay, so maybe those who destroy the earth will have their efforts result in their own destruction. Those who are destroying the earth might be destroyed when at this time. Basically, it's kind of interesting. Now, a third of the part of trees, that's a lot. If you live in an area that does a lot of logging, that has a livelihood based on harvesting trees and doing things, and you just lose a third of the trees, you just lost a lot of economic value, basically. A lot of grazing areas because the grass is burnt up. So nature is ruined. Could this be man-made destruction? If we think of it from a modern age, could that be man causing this destruction, like climate change, other stuff like that? I don't know. Climate change tends to be global, where this shows it's specific. What about nuclear weapons? Could this be nuclear weapons would cause this to happen? So if you're trying to think literally, how could verse 7 be literal? These might be things you could think about. Bombs and other ordnance dropped would burn up the trees, grass, just wildfires, heat. This is really interesting. Now, this ties in a way to if you look back in the book of Enoch, which is an apocryphal writing, lots of destructions similar to this happen at that time as well. Now, verse 8, this is the second angel sounded, and it as it were a great mountain burning with fire, was cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became blood. So a burning mountain with fire, mountain on fire that goes into the sea. Could this be tectonic activity causing a part of a continent piece to slide into the ocean? Could this be volcanic activity? Like Mount Krakatoa literally built itself up above ground to be a volcanic mountain, and then when it erupted, it blew itself up to where only that was left was below the surface of the sea. It caused a lot of widespread destruction at the south end of Indonesia area when that blew up in the 1800s. So could it be that? Maybe this is even an asteroid. Looks like a big fiery mountain coming down. If you're thinking literal, those might be some possibilities to look at verse 8. Now, what's interesting is that a third of the sea, so again, a third of the forests and grass, third of the sea, so there's still that limited, narrow perspective of how bad the destruction gets, but a third of the sea became blood. Now, this is a sign of war. Water turning into blood is a sign of war. That's a common one for the ancient world. So maybe there's more about wars and destructions happening at the time as well. Of course, this also could show, I mean, if we had like an asteroid come down, or this kind of tectonic activity, or even this kind of volcanic activity, it could cause economic destructions, thus causing more conflict and wars as people try to survive and countries take over other countries for natural resources and other things. There could be a war component in that as well, and destruction. So natural disasters leading to economic disasters, leading to national wars and things. Now, verse 9, and the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. So there's still quite a bit of destruction, but it's still only a third. 2/3 aren't destroyed. So we don't know what this is. Could this be some underwater volcanic activity causing like a tsunami? If an asteroid hit, it could cause tsunami effects. If you've ever studied the Chicxulub event that hit the peninsula, down by Teotihuacan, that area in the north part of Central America, where South America connects in with Central America, Yucatan Peninsula. That's what the word I was trying to come up with. Sorry. The Chicxulub event, they think that was the global destruction event that took out a lot of the dinosaurs. In dreams, also, we think of asteroids was a sign of coming war and doom and destruction that was happening to the people as well. So, but I mean, a third is still a lot of destruction. It's not complete. There's still a limit to the destruction that's happening. It's very specific, but it's still bad. For that third, it's really bad. Verse 10, and the third angel, so this is angel 3, sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of waters. So this is a star falling from heaven. Again, could this be an asteroid? Could this be just a symbol of pollution from like wars and destructions and things that are happening? We don't know. We don't know exactly what causes it. Okay, in the last days, we think of latter day, like what are the things that are going to happen in the last days. I've noticed that there's two categories you can put things in. Either it's describing an event that happens, or you're going to get the timeline, the direction and momentum of where is it going to. Rarely do you ever see both in the same time. Now, the challenge with that is if you have a series of events, that's like having a bunch of images of somebody's vacation, but you don't know the order of when they happen. So it's like somebody saying, hey, I just printed off all my pictures for my vacation. I want you to put them in order of when they happened. I want you to build the timeline. Well, if we don't have any indication of what their itinerary was, what was the timeline, then it won't be easy to build the timeline just from a bunch of pictures of events. And so that's the thing with Revelations is the scriptures that give us the events don't usually give us the timeline reference. The scriptures that give us timeline reference don't give us the events that'll happen on that timeline. So it's hard to completely match that up to delineate it out perfectly. So again, it's probably meant that way so we don't completely guess what it is and then waste our day of probation. All right, so now we have in verse 10 this third part of the rivers and upon the fountains of the water, so like springs, running waters, ruining all the water, like a third of the water is gone. That's bad because that means no drinking water, famines, famines, dehydrations, other problems are going to happen as well. Verse 11, and the name of the star is called wormwood. We know the name of this star that does this. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. Now, the wormwood is Greek for absinthe. This is used to make a highly potent alcoholic beverage. Poisoned waters are waters that are highly mind-altering. Poisoned is bitter in Greek. That's where it says because they were made bitter. Okay, there isn't an ancient star named wormwood. We don't have like any ancient astrologer or astronomer saying, "Oh yeah, there's wormwood," but it is named due to what it does, which is basically contaminate. That's what it says. So it's called wormwood not because there's a star named wormwood that falls. It's because what the result of this is contamination, basically. So that's what we're going to see in verse 11. Now, verse 12, the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten. So if you notice, there's this, hopefully you see this trend, a third of nature, a third of the rivers, now a third of the sun was smitten, third part of the moon, third part of the stars, so the heavens were smitten, third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. So maybe less light due to, that third is important to look at. Okay, when we think of the war in heaven, a third of the host of heaven left as well. So we can kind of see this idea of not everybody gets destruction, just those who don't follow God get destruction. Some challenges that'll happen to them. So God's destruction isn't rampant, it's limited to where it needs to be, and that's it. It's not widespread. It'll feel widespread because it's just such a big area. But like if you took a third of your backyard and tilled it under, it wouldn't be in the total amount of it, you still have 2/3 of a yard left. For any insects in that third, it's going to feel like widespread destruction, basically. So it's the perspective you take that makes a difference on that. So if we look at this idea of the third being darkened, there's a third less light during the day so that we get more darkness. Could this be from smoke? volcanic activities, ash, stuff in the air causing more cloud cover destruction. Could there be more of a celestial issue like um, eclipses that happen more common to block the sun? Could this be other things that are celestial that limit the amount of light we get? We don't know. The interesting thing from a metaphorical standpoint on verse 12 is it's a loss of light. Losing the light from a spiritual standpoint means less influence of God, which means more judgments, more wrath coming down, basically. So, loss of light in the Greco Roman world was a sign of natural disasters and Greco Roman ideas, basically, this destruction that happened. So, we can see again, now in John's day and age, there were lots of destructions. Okay, we got to realize it wasn't that long before there was Mount Vesuvius erupted to take out Pompeii and the other cities in that area on that island. There were great earthquakes that had happened in the area before then that preceded the area that destroyed some of the Greek areas in the islands. There's been other plagues and challenges and destructions and things that have happened as well. So they can look at this and go, we're getting ready for the time of Christ to come again. And it wasn't, of course, because we're about 2,000 years later and he hasn't come yet. So this is obviously still in the future. But I think we should look at this less literally and more spiritually, metaphorically, thinking about this going, okay, there's going to be a lot of destruction. There's going to be a lot of problems. Definitely things are going to happen that are bad. Natural disasters, elements in commotion, wars, all, pollutions, contaminations, all kinds of destruction is going to happen. The righteous are going to be the ones who are standing in the holy places. They're going to be the ones that will survive this the best. Those who are not in those holy places are going to be left on their own and be struggling and not do as well. So the less light means less influence of God, more influence of Satan. Could be a thing we see in verse 12 as well. Now verse 13, and I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of other voices of the trumpet of the three angels, which are yet to sound. So 4 angels out of the 7 have blown their trumpets. These destructions and things have come on the earth because of them. Now there's this angel coming through the area pronouncing woes like, guys, it's not going to get better. You need to be repenting. You need to be improving yourself, basically. So what's interesting when it says that in Greek, where it says, I heard an angel fly, Greek, this word can be eagle. But they're both symbol. An eagle would be a symbol of like an angel or divine intervention type idea. Anyways, it's a messenger from God. It's a divine messenger coming down to do this. Now, 4 trumpets have resulted in damage to ecosystems. We've seen more natural effects that we've seen on there. These are indirect for humans. So problems for economies and basic living. Bad water, little light mean no plant growth. So we can see as the natural elements go into array, man's world is going to fall into disarray as well, because they won't be able to keep it all together. Symbolically, they are the announcement of impending war. The next trumpet we're going to see in this next chapter will bring an army to afflict humans who are not following God. So again, impending military action coming from God as well is what we're going to see. So let's jump over to the next chapter to continue the rest of the trumpet's vision.